Hey there, my name is Rachael Killackey, and welcome to the Magdala Podcast. We at Magdala know from experience that pornography, masturbation, and other sexual addictions are not just a guy problem. The need for women to be accompanied in a journey towards healing from addiction has gone sorely unmet, and that's why we're here. Magdala exists as a space where women can find hope, healing, and freedom alongside each other from sexual addiction. Our goal is to supply you with support, community, and accountability. Here on the podcast, you'll find everything from testimonies to practical advice to dialogue about how to heal and live fully as a Catholic woman. Wherever you are in your journey, know that you're not alone, and we welcome you to this table.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Welcome back to the Magdala Podcast. This is episode 2 of season 3, and this is the beginning of our series on media. So you have a bit of a reputation for talking about technology and media. Tell us why. Tell us where you find yourself nowadays.
Well, I guess for context, I'm not sure if you've mentioned The Move in other podcasts.
I don't talk about our personal life too much.
Okay, yeah.
But we moved.
We did move. Sorry. Didn't mean to divulge all these personal things. But we moved to Florida, and I currently work at a high school, of all-boys high school.
I was about to say, that's a key detail.
Yeah, it's an all-boys high school. It has for what you'd expect, it has a very impressive socioeconomic diversity. But it is very preppy, and so you get lots of guys who could use some smoothing of the edges, perhaps. But we have a convocation, as we call it, every morning, and that's just sort of a like a fervorino, or it's a kind of a pump up talk, or it's a inspirational speaker of sorts. It's people from all walks of life come. That's how every school day begins in the chapel. And so it could be, again, like a priest or a motivational speaker, or just something that's kind of prayerful from one of the faculty members. I had the opportunity, and usually each faculty member only gets one shot once a year. So
only one?
Yeah, I might do one next semester.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm in campus ministry. But most faculty members will only do it once. You'd think there'd be more slots because there's
it's like every day.
It's every day.
Yeah.
Well, 4 days a week.
Still.
Out of the 5, but still. But yeah, there's lots of, I guess also just like there's masses that'll, take over that period, or there's blessings that'll happen, or there are, or just lots of visitors that come by. And so, but I gave mine on technology and addiction.
And it slapped.
I hope so. It was, it's funny because my point was, I guess I had several points, but I mean, one of the big takeaways all the guys took from it, even though it wasn't necessarily what I wanted them to take away from it, was just like dopamine and like the addiction of, I was teasing them because we have a no tech policy at the school where they do have iPads, kind of ironically, but they have, they're not allowed to use their phone, no smartwatches, no earbuds, nothing during school hours, which only makes sense because there's no reason for them to be using it. Even though every single guy there is watching sports highlights on their iPads issued by the school, during lunch hours. But the guys will still be listening to music in between classes. And it might seem harmless, but I mean, it is school policy, and I tried to not be a jerk about it, but I also want to enforce what is supposed to be the rule.
Yeah.
But anyway, in my convocation, I was teasing them as I was saying, what you're doing when you do that, when you slip on the AirPods because you just need a beat, is you were going stir crazy in class, and for 50 minutes, maybe 45 minutes for a shorter class, you didn't have any sound, you just listened to a teacher, and you're getting really bored. And you have 4 minutes between classes, and you just need a dopamine hit. And it's smaller, but it is the same thing as taking a cigarette, like a drag of a cigarette, or taking a hit of something to get a sense of pleasure from music. And so that was kind of a thing the boys just laughed at, and now Mr. AirPod, please.
Well, you also carry around a box around campus that says distraction is lame. For them to put their
that's
phones
fair.
in.
I have this big distraction is lame, which is actually mimicking the Fight the New Drugs famous porn is lame.
I think that.
Oh, it was someone else.
I think that was Matt Fradd. I don't think.
Oh,
that
really?
was,
Okay. Well, it's this big sticker that a lot of college students would have.
It's on my water bottle.
Yes, you do have it, and it's just this massive sticker with like this kind of 1980s aesthetic of like,
porn is lame.
Yeah, porn is lame with like a kind of that the shooting rainbow kind of like vibe to it.
The sticker is not lame.
No, the sticker is not lame. It's
a
great sticker. But I have this big box and it says "Distraction is lame" with a massive iPhone on it, and the lame is in red letters, and it's just a paper box. It's a box that's cardboard, but like it was for where the paper comes in.
It was for paper.
And back in the day, and I walk across campus for my one class that I teach. Besides my campus ministry is my main role, but then I teach one class, and for that class I make all my students dump in their phone. Yeah.
To the distraction is lame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And today I did not bring it because I was like, my boys are good, and then I show up and two of them on their phone, and I couldn't believe it. Didn't pH them, but it was
I need to reach my water.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other update is that I don't even know if listeners knew I was expecting or we were expecting. Maybe they did. Maybe I said it at one point, but we're no longer expecting. The baby is here, and she is currently strapped to me in a little wrap, kind of like a little baby kangaroo.
We were expecting, and as you may have expected if you were thinking. The expecting was expected, and
the expectation.
No. Never mind. The baby's born.
Anyway, yes, the baby's here.
Let's move on fast.
Yes, and she's asleep, but she might wake up. Anywho, so we're gonna put your Luddite. Is it Luddite or Luddite? Luddite?
I've heard both. I say Luddite. Yeah.
Either way, we're gonna put that reputation to good use. So, one of the topics that our patrons keep on requesting, and actually some of our small group leaders too, when I asked them, what topics do you want to see on the podcast this season, they asked for like how to balance using a smartphone during recovery, which we will touch later. That's not this episode because that will be a long one.
Home Depot sells sledgehammers.
And stop. We'll get there.
Coming soon.
We'll get there. And then TV and music is another one that was requested, or how to handle TV specifically. But I thought before we do that, we probably just need to do an overview of why media consumption, why good media consumption matters in recovery anyway. Because I think what happens, especially to women, I'll just lay this out, is we think in recovery, I'm fine, I'm not watching porn anymore, I can still watch these raunchy TV shows, I can still watch these rom-coms, I'll be fine. And we end up being triggered by a massive amount of content that's streaming basically anywhere right now. But a lot of women don't know where to go next with media. They don't know, okay, if that's my norm, if I'm used to just, hopping on Netflix and streaming Bridgerton, which, yes, don't watch Bridgerton. It's a bad idea. Anyway, it's like a period. It's like Downton Abbey, but raunchy. That's Bridgerton, just for a clarifier. Anyway, but if that's their norm, is just hopping onto any streaming service when they want to relax or when they want an escape or when they want to watch anything, 'cause it's not bad to watch stuff. If that's their norm, how do they switch it back? So that's going to be our intro today, is why does good media consumption matter? So
I was involved in a ministry in Nashville, and it was instilling, I suppose, or its mission was based off of, but the main thing was that it was intending to kind of bring back the model of patronage, where patrons who believe in the arts and want to support it can do so, and then of course by proxy those artists who are building media that's good for culture are supported by these patrons. It's kind of like a bringing together of the patrons with the artists, and it's a whole movement to evangelize culture through beauty. And the reason behind it is that, truth has kind of been attacked viciously with "don't tell me your logic," and then goodness is attacked also with morality and lifestyle. "Don't tell me how you live and how I can or cannot live." But beauty is the one transcendental that no one really tends to attack, and no one's really threatened by, a beautiful song or beauty in general. It's just an unthreatening thing, even if you have, a heated debate about beauty being subjective. But that's another topic. But Anyway, but that was a part of the very simple, but I think just really, what's the word? I don't want to say obvious. It sounds pretentious, but like when you really think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just that like media matters because, you know, what you consume physically, suppose for food, like we understand that the notion of junk food is like it's food, it's tasty, and we like it in the short term, but in the long term, it's not good for us, and we don't. It's not good, and that's kind of the nature of sin. It's like it is fun or exciting in the short term, but then always it makes us boring. It always leaves us empty. It always leaves us depressed or sad or lacking because it's not giving us what we need. It's not nourishing us, and so, like food, for instance, has the component of pleasure, but it also has a component of nourishment, and the more important one of nourishment, and so. Junk food would be obviously the category of food that like is really high on the pleasure side, but has nothing, if anything, really on the side of nourishing our bodies. But the same applies with like media, and it's just not our bodies physically; it's our soul. But you might make the case of our physical brains, or you know that. But yeah, just that how. Why do we understand junk food as a concept for food, but we don't understand the concept of like junk media or junk videos or junk music or any kind of media really? Where is this good for your soul? What do you? I mean, we talked about social media already, but just like it's called a news feed, and so ask the obvious: like, what are you feeding yourself? And is it? I mean, I don't think there's going to be many people who are going to make the case that TikTok's really good for their lives. You know, they'll say like. But I mean, I think TikTok is so obviously what it is that even people would probably be willing to say, yeah, it's basically like just chowing down like a whole massive bag of M&Ms or something. You know, it's really tasty, but then afterward, you're like, why did I do that? Right. By the way, TikTok's also named the way it is because it's actually mocking its users as like TikTok, you're wasting so much time.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's kind of savage, but yeah. And most people who use it, they're like, yeah, I mean, because the videos are so short, you feel like, oh, it's a short video, so therefore no time has passed, which is maybe true individually, but then it's all about the multiplication effect.
I've wondered why they named it that.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
That's one thing. That's what I've been told by someone who seemed like a reliable source because he seemed like a very cultured or
we'll see.
Woke young high school boy.
Reliable source.
Aware. I don't know. Yeah.
I think what I think of a lot when I think about media and recovery is just the concept of escaping. Like you and I talk about this regularly, but learning to treat media as something that, or let's just say like, you know, streaming a show or something, learning to treat it as something that we don't escape to in general, but something like we enjoy, like as leisure, it feels nearly impossible today. Like, but this is like, when you think about what happened to film, for instance, like it used to be you went to like the movie theater, right? Or you went to the drive-in and it was like a community experience. It was certainly not like a solo experience. You went with friends, you made a night of it, and then it slowly just became more and more isolated to now where we can just access it on our phones by ourselves in bed at 2 a.m. And I think that, I mean, pornography is ultimately like, it's a huge escape, right? That's what it is. But I think it's hard to reorder our consumption of media to something that's truly just leisurely and enjoyable and even good. Like I know for me in recovery, it did not feel like watching anything could be good for a few years. Like just watching TV felt exhausting because it still had this character of escape. So can you speak to that? Like, how do we switch to media being something leisurely instead of something that causes, or just something to escape to or escape into?
The first thing that comes to mind is actually a nugget of wisdom my brother one time gave me. He gave a lot of nuggets of wisdom, but he would just say to approach life or approach things with a simple question, you know, is this something I would like to do or something I would like to have done? And it's amazing how as soon as you just switch it to the simple past tense, it changes everything. So junk food, obviously, is something you'd like to do. I would like to eat this cookie, right? It's like, are you going to, if you're at a distance from it, like you wake up in the morning, you're like, today I would like to have 5 Oreo cookies. And that's something that I would like to have done. You know, it's like, it just immediately changed the nature of your judgment or of your real desires, you know? There's a huge difference in your like intellectual desires versus your passionate desires, affective in the moment. And so I would say when you're doing something that's not good is when the answer is yes to the first question and no to the second question. Like, I want to do this, but I do not want to have done this, which means you regret it. Ugh, you're regretting it. Wow. And so that's just like where you're doing something you know is not good for you.
Right.
And we do stuff like that all the time, where it's like, I would like to watch YouTube now. Would I like to have watched an hour of YouTube of just random videos, and then all of a sudden I'm on a rabbit hole and I'm learning how to feed a giraffe properly? It's like, I think I went, there's not something I would like to have done. It's like, but I learned how to feed a giraffe, whatever it may be. But I think when the answer is yes to the second question and not the first question, that is something that's noble, but perhaps you are, at the earliest stages of the virtue of that particular virtue. So for instance, suppose you want to get in the habit of working out, or you want to study, and you would like to have done it, but you don't want to do it. So it's good that you do it. Like, I'm forcing myself to study, I'm forcing myself to work out, but there's no pleasure in it, but you are doing what you know you're meant to do. And that's, of course, very noble in the sense that you're kind of getting through that difficulty. But really, of course, the goal is yes to both questions. That is something I would like to have done.
That's what I was going to say.
And something I would like to also do. And so the virtuous person is, we have this misperception, suppose for courage, that like, oh, the courageous person is the one who's like terrified and then overcomes it and then goes out into battle. And that's true. That person would be courageous, but the most courageous person is the one who readily goes out in battle. Or it's like the hard thing to do becomes actually easy, which is ironic, or it seems like it's a contradiction. Or the honest person is not the one who is like, I will not lie. It's the one who never considers lying. It's always telling the truth. Like any kind of virtue you can think of should be actually, the perfection of that virtue should always be easy, and not just easy, but pleasurable and natural, because it is the most natural to our who we are, is the nature of what it means to be human. And so being virtuous is much less so about doing things and not doing things, but true virtue is more about being just what you are. And so I think if, bring us back to media, it's like yes, phase one is getting away from doing things in the moment and then regretting them. Phase two is like doing things you should do, but you're not really enjoying them yet. Suppose I will force myself to read a book, or I'll force myself to watch this, maybe, I don't know, maybe this more boring movie, but I know it's clean and I know it's actually good and I can have a conversation about it, but it's like more boring than the other show I was watching that I know is raunchy. Yeah. But then maybe, up the ante and it's, you're back to books or board, whatever. I don't know what the example may be, but the point is that like you're climbing up the ladder of a finer taste, a higher taste, a more wholesome and good thing. And you're not just enjoying the fact, or you're not just not regretting the fact you're doing it because it's good for you, but also you begin to, it comes more easily, and you actually take more pleasure in it. And so, like, I think also if you were to ask someone a question like, if you were given $1 million and money was never an issue, what would you do with your life? I mean, I think some people would be like, yeah, I just do whatever and to TikTok and watch YouTube. That's possible. But I still think that most people would start listing off their dreams and aspirations of like what they really desire deep down for true leisure. Like I would love to be an artist, or I'd love to write more and write a book, or I'd love to, go to the beach and contemplate and just like, swim and I don't know, whatever. Yeah. Maybe I'm being a little cheesy now, but like I think when you really talk to people what they would like to use with their lives and their time, it's not usually, lame. It usually is more noble and more dreamy in that sense. And so, I mean, it seems to me that like the goal, of course, is yes to both questions. You would like to do it and you like to have done it, and that you're taking pleasure in it. And again, it's not an escaping of reality. It's a deepening into reality. And that's a totally different beast.
Yeah. And I mean, she's stirring.
She has awoken. We have awoken the sleeping babe.
She might go back to sleep. Let's see. Yeah, we're good. I keep on thinking of, just the first principle of the moral life is like do good, avoid evil, right? Like do good, avoid evil. And I think in recovery it can feel, and sometimes maybe I embrace this mindset a little bit too much, is when promoting recovery resources is like just you get really, really locked on the avoid evil part. You're like, just get rid of all of it. I'm like, get rid of your smartphone, get rid of social media, and which all of these things I think are helpful, right? Insofar as they free you up to do good. Yeah. So I think with media consumption, it's, I think oftentimes when people are in recovery, they're looking for the answer of like, how do I just avoid evil? How do I just stop watching porn? How do I stop watching? It's like, well, a lot of the ways that you stop doing that is by doing good, is by discovering leisure, and I think even now, like with media consumption for me, it's, like you kind of get to a place where you're just not even tempted by the raunchy stuff anymore, because you're just like, no, that's just gross. And I'd rather enjoy a good book, or I'd rather enjoy a funny movie, or I'd rather, when you are trying to recover, it's not about like, don't give yourself things you enjoy. It's actually about give yourself things you truly enjoy. Yeah. And that's, I think that's the beauty part as well, as like
pleasures.
Beauty can be enjoyed, like actual joy. Yeah. 'Cause I mean, porn or raunchy media, the word raunchy just keeps on being the one that we go to. Raunchy, because it's easy. But yeah, I mean, that kind of media, like, it satiates something in the moment, but I wouldn't say we actually enjoy it. There's no joy involved in that. But that's, I think,
it's a good distinction. You take pleasure in it, perhaps.
Sure.
But you don't enjoy it, and like it elicits joy in you.
Right. Right. And I think good media is capable of doing that.
I read a book once that is maybe not my favorite book still, but certainly my top 3. But I would probably say it's still my favorite book, just in terms of like how much it changed my life, and it's just so beautiful. But it's called On the Unseriousness of Human Affairs. It's by this priest, actually, Father James Shaw, and it's kind of this huge kind of mind game in terms of like the point of the book, but it's the idea that we if like the fact that there's like one line in the book, it says like, you're useless, and that's the best thing about you. And what he means by that is like, he's trying to get you out of this cycle of assuming that like your value is derived from your utility, your usefulness. Right. And I think particularly in America, or perhaps for all countries in general, there's a glorification of usefulness. That like, if it's not useful, therefore must be worthless. And so that we equate usefulness with our worth, or our utility with worth. And that's not the case. Like, because if you think about it, like the best things in life are the ones that are just good in and of themselves. Like the good you're seeking is there. Like, useful things, like suppose a broken lawnmower would be also worthless. It's useless and it's worthless, because the good of a lawnmower is the fact that it brings about the good of a mowed lawn. But that's the good you're seeking. You're not seeking just to hang out with this lawnmower for no reason. You use a lawnmower for the purpose of the good of a mowed lawn. And so if it were broken, then that would be also worthless, because that's the worth of it. But for most things, like you can think of singing or dancing or stargazing or reading a good book that's not even necessarily to help you with school. Like all these different things are the good you're seeking is not being, you're not using this for the purpose of another good. Like the good you're seeking is there. You've arrived. You found it. It's not a bridge. It's a city. You are resting in the good itself. And like you can even say, I would say love is useless. Like, because if you're using love for something else, and that's like, we have a term for that. It's like, I felt used, and that's not a good thing. And so I think in terms of like media, I think because of that tendency for us to think of useless and worthless as the same thing, we also tend to think, okay, if something is not useful for something else, therefore it's also not just worthless, maybe not worthless, but it's also inconsequential, or it just doesn't make any difference. Like, who cares? So it's like, okay, well, college is meant for a degree to get, suppose engineering, and that's going to help me this or X, Y, and Z. But like, oh, well, this is like something that's not necessarily has any use, so it doesn't really matter what I do or not do. And so we think of our free time as this free space that we can fill with whatever we want. And if it's not useful, therefore it's also inconsequential. So full circle, it's like if I watch videos or or just suppose it's entertainment as a whole, whatever medium it is, with music or videos or, obviously pornography, it's a raunchy, but obviously a form of entertainment. Right. And that could be like, you think, okay, but I'm not using this for something else. I'm just entertaining myself. So who cares? And so it's like this philosophy, this mindset of like, I'm not using this for anything else, so therefore it's just inconsequential and makes no difference because it has no value. in a sense. But that's just like a shoddy idea. It's just incorrect. That the best things in life are useless, and things that, how do I say this? Like, yeah, I mean, things that are not useful sometimes have like the greatest impact on your soul.
Yeah.
Like music, yes, it's not useful. Enjoy it for its own sake. But that actually does, it's almost the opposite. It actually has the greatest effect on your soul because it elicits beauty in you, or this desire, or, you know, it makes you tap your feet. Music has all kinds of things. That's music. It's the same thing with videos, or I would say video games, or any kind of form of media. All of those things deeply affect your soul.
Yeah.
And so it's just an erroneous mindset to think, I'm not using it for anything else. I'm just entertaining myself, so who cares? Because it's this mindset that, you know, if it doesn't have any utility, therefore it's inconsequential and makes no difference or has no effect on me. And that's just totally false. Things that are, like, I think the things that you enjoy most in life are the things that are useless and are the things that have the greatest effect on you. And I would even say that some of our most fond memories as human beings tend to be those things that are useless, of you just hanging out with grandpa and just on the porch, or you watching that sunset with that best friend of yours, or whatever you want to think about in your own brain of like different moments that you cherish. But those are usually useless, not used for anything else, and they're also the ones that have the greatest impact on you, and we're not inconsequential.
I think that's, like, she might talk over me, but I think that's one of the points with use and usefulness that I think, yeah, she's kind of really grunting. What's coming to mind for me though is the fact that, like, pornography is useful. Like, it is like a use. It's not useful in a sense like what you're talking about, and saying it only, you know, it's only for me. It's not for anybody else. Who's it affecting? Yada, yada, yada. It's useless in that regard. It is useful in the sense that it achieves a certain purpose for different people.
Yeah.
But then I wonder if part of reordering media consumption isn't finding the way to see media as useless. You know, because to your point, yes, pornography can be useless, but in a different lens. Learning to consume media that is useless insofar as it's beautiful. That might be it. Where I need to stop seeing media as what can it provide me? You know, because that's the mindset with porn, is what can this get me right now? Yeah. And that's still that escaping. Like, I think it was Henry Nouwen who pointed out in Can You Drink the Cup that entertainment comes from just the Latin roots in the word is to keep someone in between. Like, to suspend them from reality, right? Entertainment is to suspend from reality. So I think learning to find media that is beautiful. We can talk more about that in like later episodes too, or in the next episodes, of just suggestions of how to find it. But become a Love Good patron. That's one of the first ones. But I think finding a way to look at media as something useless insofar as it's beautiful and it serves its own purpose. I don't know. That's a different angle on your point about usefulness.
I think maybe one final point is, or thought, is the more pure or good something may be, I think the easier it is to understand the fact that when you partake in it or enjoy it, you're enjoying it for its own sake. Like, if it's a good, you know, a symphony, people know. I mean, some people go to the symphony because they want to feel like high class, and that's true.
That's why I go to the symphony.
But like, if you really enjoy like the classical music and seeing it live and everything that comes with it, you're not really thinking, I want to go to the symphony to elicit these feelings in me. Those happen, but I would say you're still intending to go for its own sake of like, I want to enjoy this good music and I can delight in that music. And then as a direct consequence, then yes, I do feel a certain way. And if you're doing it for the sake of the feeling, that would actually be kitschy. But I think in terms of pornography or anything else that is not, you know, noble, then it's harder. Like you wouldn't think of it as like, oh, I'm just using it for its own sake. I think it's probably easier to think of it as a medium, like a tool. Also for not then the other side of that is also not good. But I think the more you can kind of purify those loves, you love what is good and not just what is good, but also the highest good. And, you know, our lives are a battle of constantly competing goods, you know, and all things have some goodness in it, but it's always about like finding and loving the greatest good and purifying that and kind of reaching higher and higher in the ladder. And I think the higher you go up of like the more pure goods, the easier it is to recognize, oh yeah, I'm here just to, you know, I don't know, even like a relationship, you think of like first dates, like, okay, I'm here on this first date to get to know you, you know, and let's hope by date 30 or, you know, 6-month mark or something, whatever you want to say, it's like, I'm here to delight in my significant other,
right.
you know, and be with them. And
right.
that's good for its own sake, not because I want to like learn more. And that's of course happening in the background if you're still discerning, you know, if you're engaged or that kind of thing. But I think it becomes more and more intuitive to recognize this is good for its own sake.
Yeah. And you learn by delighting actually, and by just resting in the good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a final point that I'll make kind of leading into the rest of our series is, I probably have heard this somewhere. It was that like beautiful things don't ask for attention, but they demand that you pay attention at the same time. They don't ask for it, but they in themselves demand that you pay attention.
Yeah.
And I can almost always tell when media is not worth my time, especially as someone who's recovered. Like, I can almost tell it's always not worth my time if I can like go mindless, go numb, do something else. Like while it, like, if I flip on The Bachelor and can keep on going over my spreadsheets, I probably shouldn't watch The Bachelor. It's not beautiful. It's not demanding my attention. I definitely still watch The Bachelor, you know that. But I think, but there's something to that, is if I can mindlessly do another task while this media is blaring in the background. And I think music can be a little different, right? Like I think sometimes we can work to music. But like you're talking about with the symphony, like it demands that you pay attention.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to pay attention, but that's how you ascend. That's how you purify. That's how you get higher, is through your attention. Yeah. But we'll go on a rant about attention if we don't stop. So
that's true.
It's time to conclude.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's good. Yes.
But we will come back next week with more on television and music, actually.
Rachel, it's been a real pleasure. We should
hang out sometime.
Hang out some more.
Oh, gosh. Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Can I have a number?
Oh my gosh. Okay. And the baby's waking up too. If you like this episode, like, subscribe, share with a friend, leave us a rating if you're on Apple Podcasts. That helps us out a ton. If you want more exclusive content, hop on over to our Patreon. Right now, we are doing a book study on J. Stringer's Unwanted, and we would love to have you join us. You also get to support Magdala financially through Patreon, which is a huge help to us as well. But other than that, oh wait, Covenant Eyes. I always forget to say Covenant Eyes. If you need Covenant Eyes, use our code Magdala for a discount. That will be in the show notes. And then in our next few episodes, we will have recommendations for good media in the show notes as well. So stay tuned for our next episodes in the media series, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Sweet. So long.
Thanks for joining the conversation today on the Magdala podcast. If you want to learn more, join a support group with other women on the journey, or find more content, visit magdalaministries.org. If you want to continue to be a part of the conversation, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. But most importantly, wherever you are in the journey of healing, know that you're not alone and you don't have to hide anymore. We're excited to welcome you to the table next time. God bless.